All right, in this lesson, we're going to be going over picking. Now, there are many people who want to do more on the ukulele than just strum. And we already introduced picking a little bit on the exercise with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 4, etc. But now we're going to talk a little bit about making the most of that right hand to get a really nice clear tone with your picking. So what we're going to do is first talk about the thumb. Now, there are many different ways to pick, and we're going to be going over a couple different variations, but for the most part, I do pick a lot with my thumb. I don't know if it's just a Hawaii thing, but in comparison to a lot of guitarists who will use multiple fingers, we will be kind of pushing primarily picking with that right thumb. Now, in order to get a really good tone, we're actually just going to focus on using the right hand. We'll pluck the open A string for a second. The A string, of course, is the string closest to your feet. And what we're going to do is really focus on using the tip of your thumb. Now, if you notice, I do have a little bit of nail. You don't need quite as long of a nail to get a good tone, but you do want to use the tip of your thumb. So in that case, I do have to bring my wrist up and out a little bit and give myself an angle that allows me to use that tip of the thumb there. Now, the reason why that's important is not only does it give me clearance of other strings, let's say I'm picking on that C string or E and A, if you notice, my thumb is moving as a whole. I'm not bending the thumb there. So because it is rooted, it's almost like a little pendulum that happens. And because of that pendulum, that allows me to just use the tip on a string here, and I can go back and forth and not hit the other strings because I am hitting it on that very tip of that pendulum. And two, the other reason for getting and using that tip of the thumb is that if I'm using the side of my thumb like a lot of guitarists would use, my tone will be a little bit more thuddy. The reason is I'm going to be using a lot more skin on the side of my thumb to hit the string. So it's going to be a little bit more surface area that hits the string. So it's not going to be as crisp as the very tip of your thumb, regardless if you have a nail or not. So please practice when you're doing these pickings. And there are techniques, don't get me wrong, that will use the side of your thumb, but it's a very deliberate technique. So I want you to be able to kind of practice through both. But for now, focus on using that tip. It's going to be a little bit more different to use at first. So wrist comes out just a little bit on the right hand, and it gives me a nice angle on that thumb on the strings. So let's try and just hit that A string for a second. Good. You want to have a good follow through. And make sure you're not bending your thumb. Really focus on that nice straight thumb, moving that whole thumb, and following through. And if you notice, I can also cradle my whole corner of the ukulele if needed, so that actually helps keep everything in place. And I have a nice, strong follow through. Good. Now, as we introduce these exercises, especially with the C scale, I do challenge you to practice using different fingers. With these guys, what you're going to end up doing is plucking up. So if you're using your index to pluck, you're going to pluck up on the A string. Or middle. Or ring. But we want to start practicing with multiple fingers, and we'll get into that as we introduce the C scale exercises.